This week on Behind the Pulpit, it's a very special episode. Happy birthday, Behind the Pulpit. This episode marks 1 year of our weekly Pastors Podcast rebrand. And here to celebrate it with us are the co-directors of children's ministries here at NBC, Lenore Tassi and Rachel Rickershauser.
Well, we are going to be officially co-directors.
That's right.
Starting April 1st, and we'll be sharing the role. So I've been the director for 7.5 years. Lenore's been with me as the assistant, and so now we're excited to just share the whole entire role together.
In today's episode, we talk child discipleship, and we talk about 3 different news stories that point to one central question: where are we finding our hope?
U.S. falls out of world's top 20 happiest country list for the first time ever. And the World Happiness Report's editorial board pointed to happiness decreasing in all age groups in the U.S., and it also found a significant decline among young people, who are now the least happy age group.
And of course, we will dive deep into this past weekend's Underground Sessions event, where we had Dr. Christopher Yu on here with us to discuss holy sexuality.
One of the conversations I had with somebody that I worked with, do you think that I'm going to hell because I'm gay? At the end of the day, what I said to this guy was, people don't go to hell because you're of this identity. You go to hell because you don't know Jesus.
Wherever you may be watching or listening to this today, we hope you're having a wonderful day. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's edition of Behind the Pulpit.
Hey everybody, welcome there for Behind the Pulpit. It is March the 25th, 2024. As I say at the end of every month, this is the last Behind the Pulpit for this month. Next time we're with you, it's going to be April. Hard to believe we'll be in the 4th month of the year, but we're glad you're hanging with us. And today is a very special Behind the Pulpit, which we'll get to in just a minute. But it's also special because I have some very, very special guests joining me over here to my left. Welcome, ladies. Tell people who you are.
Hello, I'm Lenore Tassi, and as of April 1st, I'm the co-director of children's ministries.
Oh, that's exciting to say. And my name is Rachel Rickershauser, and also as of April 1st, I am the co-director of children's ministries.
All right, very cool. We'll talk about those in just a minute. Pastor Dave is not with us today. He is indisposed, so he will hopefully be back for Sunday and for next week. So I'm flying solo with some wonderful guests. So glad you're here today. Before we circle back to the kids ministry piece, do you mind if we just do a little bit of announcements about what's coming up in the life of the church?
Let's do it.
And then we'll talk a little kids ministry, okay? All right, here. First thing that's coming up, and really the only thing that's coming up, it is Holy Week.
Yes.
And it is Easter weekend is next weekend, and we just piled on everything that we could possibly happen on Easter weekend. So let me first start talking about Friday night. We have our Messiah and the Passover Good Friday service. Mitch Glazer is going to be with us. He's going to be walking us through a Jewish Seder and telling us a bit about the Jewish roots of our faith and how indeed the Jewish Seder is a reminder of Passover and what happened, and it really points to the true Messiah himself. So that's going to be Friday night, 7 p.m. We hope that you join us for that. Come on out. It's going to be a wonderful night.
And he said, if I could just say, he said bring your kids. So
he did. Yeah,
7 p.m. I would say especially elementary kids could really enjoy that, in my opinion. So
there you go. I have watched him do this a number of times, and if you come, you might actually be able to participate. And I think he picks on kids.
Oh, it's like interactive. Okay.
It is actually. Well, we learned on a previous Behind the Pulpit that Tim was involved back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Should we relive this, Tim?
Yeah,
Cool.
I'd be down to go back up there. I look a little different than I did when I was like 8, but
Just a smidge.
I actually had, it's classic because it's still very me. My mom reminded me that I actually went up there with bare feet because I had my shoes off in the sun.
You did.
Oh, yeah.
He was in the office the other day with bare. Tim is constantly walking
People
around
don't
with
need
bare
to know
feet.
that.
People.
No,
Well, now
no one
people
was here
do.
on Friday, and I
do
just run down to the
recall that
office.
now that you mention it.
I see him down here in the studio exfoliating his feet.
I've never had my feet open in the studio.
He's got the stone just rubbing on the.
Nice.
Poor Tim. Poor
Nice.
Tim. Okay.
They're nice feet, though, Tim.
All right. Anyway, let's
All right.
move on to Saturday. So Jesus, Good Friday, crucifixion. Saturday, he's in the underworld, and we're gonna have our racing egg party on Saturday.
It's going to happen.
Tell us about that.
Hoppin'. It's going to be a hoppin' day, as Christy likes to say. It's going to be...
Will Christy be dressed as a rabbit that day?
No, but there's going to be real live rabbits there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Chicks.
Yeah, our petting zoo is going to be back this year. And again, this is our hair-raising egg party. So no egg hunt, but don't be disappointed by that. There's plenty of carnival games where the children will earn lots of candy. Woohoo! And there's going to be crafts. New this year, we're going to have an Easter video to watch, just like a short and sweet little gospel video. And what else, Lenore?
The bake sale. We can't
The
forget that,
bake
right?
sale.
Yeah. We're going to have some
Yes.
teenagers that are helping out, and they're going to have their baked goods for you to enjoy. So please support them.
Can you feed the baked goods to the rabbits?
Probably not allowed. No.
Okay.
Sorry,
They'll
Bob.
yell at you if you do that.
Yeah,
All
for sure.
The rabbits will be
Yes.
happy, but
For sure
they
not.
might also die as a
Unless
result,
they
so-
bring carrots.
Yes, carrots
Okay.
maybe you could snip.
There you go. There you go.
Want to keep them healthy.
Good.
So, what else? Oh, the clothing drive is new this year. We have a couple of new things this year. So, we partnered with Street Hope Alive, one of our ministry partners. And so you can do some spring closet cleaning and bring some of your kids' clothes and teens' clothes that you are done with, gently used, and please donate those to the kids in Patterson. So I think that's a cool addition, giving
Yes.
back as part of this event. And
And I think we'll be seeing someone probably from Street Hope.
yeah, we're
Alive,
hoping
too.
that Renee comes
So
to
if you want to
represent.
learn more about it.
Yeah, so really looking forward to it. Again, this year the timing's a little different. We decided to move it back to the morning time frame. So you can sign up for 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or if you're a family with special needs children, you can sign up for 9:30. So that's our special needs family friendly hour.
So the action step is they should still sign up, right? If you want to come?
Yeah, to
Ideally.
attend. Yeah.
Okay. Can people still give candy?
Oh, we have been getting so much candy. So thank you so
Okay.
much to everyone who's donating. But yes, you can still bring it up
Okay.
because
It's been raining candy. Like Hershey's has just been everywhere.
we've had a lot of self-control because it all goes in our office.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
You
it's
actually
lots-
can't get into your office. You got to like push the
Yes.
candy out of
Yeah.
the way
Yes.
to get in.
Pretty
They're
accurate.
sealed bags,
Yeah,
thankfully.
sealed bags.
All right, good. Well, that's Saturday. So, and that's of course it's all leading up to Sunday, which is Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. It is March 31st this year. It is the early day. I was talking with Mitch Glazer this morning, the speaker for Good Friday, and the dating for Easter is interesting. I forget the whole history of it, but basically, I don't know. I think the early Easter actually technically happens before Jesus rose from the dead or something like that, in terms of how they move it around. And
Does
all
it have
that.
to do with the Jewish calendar? When the Passover?
Something like that, maybe. I think.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I'm forgetting exactly what he said, but it's weird that it moves like over the course of 3. So next year it's going to be like the end of April or the later
Oh,
half
wow.
of April.
Okay. Yeah.
So it like moves back. So March 31st now next year it's going to be like April 20th,
Oh, wow.
and then
wow.
each year it
Okay.
moves back, and when you get to end of March, then it
Okay.
circles back.
So there's a pattern.
Yeah, there is. But it's going to be a great Sunday morning. Invite some
Yes.
friends. We are going through the Gospel of Luke, and we're going to be talking about Luke 24, the resurrection, the Emmaus Road. So we're going to continue this on the road theme, and it will be a wonderful, wonderful morning. Kid interactive message. So maybe we'll get Tim and his bare feet up on the stage for that one, along with a kid. So we'll see what happens. You don't want to miss
creeping-
that.
right.
You're
We
creeping.
have-
You're going to creep out our audience here,
Yeah,
Rob.
yeah.
That's right. Well, you know what? Yeah, it's a good point to mention. So we have our elementary kids are welcome to join in on the service, enjoy your Easter morning together. But we do have our nursery and preschool classes open and available. So that's good to make a note of for our families.
Good. All right. Well, let's circle back to kids ministry now. So you guys, ladies, had an announcement both at the annual business meeting and yesterday. And what was that big announcement that people that are viewing this that weren't at the service should be aware of?
Sure. Well, we are going to be officially co-directors.
That's right.
Starting April 1st, and we'll be sharing the role. So I've been the director for 7.5 years. Lenore's been with me as the assistant, and so now we're excited to just share the whole entire role together. So, yeah, really, really excited about it. We'll there'll be some changes, and we'll divide some responsibilities and collaborate a lot, because we do share an office, so we'll be talking a lot.
We do, absolutely, as in the past.
Yes.
All right, so maybe can I ask some FAQs here?
Of
so
course.
what does that look like? You're a co-director. Who's in charge of what? If I got questions, who should I go to? Like,
Sure.
how do we parse that out?
Lenore, you want to say how we're going to divide it?
Sure, I'll start because I start with the babies. So I'm going to be covering the nursery and the preschool. And also, I'll be the point person for Awana. We'll still be having directors. It's a volunteer-led ministry, but I'll be overseeing that. And then for some of our special events, Trunk or Treat is going to be one that I'm going to be the point person for. And I believe Operation Christmas Child, we're not there yet, but that's something also that I'd be the contact for.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So I was trying to come up with an acronym in my head. So Trunk or Treat, Awana, babies. That was TAB, but then you threw in Operation Christmas Child.
Sorry.
Maybe it's TOBE. I don't know.
Yeah, or boat. You could.
Or boats. There you
Right?
go. Perfect.
Oh, see, leave it to
Start with the
Lenore.
babies.
Oh, leave it to Lenore to come up
The
with a
ark,
good name.
right?
The
That
boat,
big
the boat
boat.
one.
There is an ark in our nursery. So. All right, so yeah, basically I'm the opposite of what she's doing. So
Are you though? Not just
so she, if Lenore has nursery and preschoolers, I take it away at elementary, and we have sorry. So also our kindergartners are with the preschoolers.
Yes.
So just to clarify that, I know kindergartners, some churches do it differently, but ours are with our preschool class. So then I take it away at first graders all the way up to sixth graders. So on Sunday mornings, that's the volunteers that I'll oversee. I mean, during the week and everything, that's the volunteer group that I oversee, and the parents and stuff. And then so Lenore has Trunk or Treat, and I'm the point person for the hair raising egg party, and I'm also the point person for VBS. But we'll also share that one as well. Kind of like with Awana too. I'll still help out with Awana in some ways, but with VBS, Lenore will take on part of the team, part of the volunteer team. But if you have questions, you would ask me that. So.
Okay. Let me throw a
Sure.
curveball here. So I'm just thinking in my head, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. What if I have a baby and a third grader?
Oh,
what do I do?
I like this question.
Well, whoever you
You're
see
speechless.
first, right?
I like it though. I
I
like
would
it.
say whoever you encounter first would be
Okay. All right.
the person, if you wanted to talk to in person, but otherwise I would email both of us. But either way, we're in very good communication, and if we receive something, we would make sure the other person got that.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool.
And it also depends on the question, of course.
Sure.
If it's about your baby, contact Lenore. But if it's about your third grader and their class or their curriculum, you would ask me. So
Okay. All right. So that's questions or comments or complaints.
yes.
Does anybody?
Complaints, that
Point-
should
point.
be directed to Rachel.
We actually have a separate email for that.
Affirmation, that one would come to me. I needed a little more, so.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much. We're excited for the new season in kids ministry, and glad you're here today.
you.
And
Thank you. Thanks
we're
for
going to
having
add
us.
quite a bit to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So the next segment that we typically do on the show is the Great Book War. And since Dave's not here today, I'm going to lay down my arms. And I did see, though, you decided to get in the fray. I see a couple books on
That's
the table
right.
here. Would you like to make some recommendations for the audience?
We heard that we got a chance to participate, so here we are. All right, so I'll go first, Lenore. I'm going to recommend this book called Resilient. It's a good word, and the subtitle is Child Discipleship and the Fearless Future of the Church. So you might have heard Lenore and I talking about this phrase, child discipleship, lately. We went to the conference last September that was all about child discipleship, and so this book is written by the team at Awana. Again, Awana is a wider ministry than just their midweek program that we do have. But they really do a lot of good research. They've partnered with Barna recently to do research on children's ministry. And so this book was really good. I read it before we went to the conference, and I like that it really talks about our job as children's ministry leaders, but also as parents, to care about the church of 2050. So when you think about that, you think about the future as like this concept, but when you actually put a number to it and think about the kids in our program, say you take an 8-year-old, they're going to be in their 30s.
How many kids do we have yesterday in our program?
Wow.
I heard there was record.
That is a great question.
Earth shattering.
It was
yesterday.
It was a record-breaking Sunday. We had 93 kids.
93.
Yep.
That was
Wow.
probably our highest since even before
Wow.
COVID. So that was really exciting.
Yeah, since we've been in this position.
Yeah. So everyone just decided to come that day. It's like if you had everyone come to church on the same day, we would have over 100.
Yeah.
We'd have 100 plus.
Definitely.
So we do, have a lot of families at our church. So I really like this book. Their Awana is all about their mission is like it's all about belong, believe, and become. So that's what we want kids to belong in the family of God, believe, of course, in Jesus, and become disciples themselves. So
Very
there you
cool.
go.
Well, can I ask you a follow-up question about
Sure.
this? So I've been doing this ministry thing quite a while now.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to admit, my hair is getting gray. But I've noticed over the years, there's sort of these words that jump out. Like when I was in seminary, like the whole missional, was the big word, and then it was gospel-centered and other things. But the discipleship, the child discipleship, seems to be one that's gaining some traction. And my question is, based on your interactions, why do you think that is? Why is that sort of becoming the it thing right now?
That's a good question.
Any observations?
Yeah. I would say like I this is just my perspective. I haven't read this or anything.
That is why
But that's
I'm
what you're
asking
looking
your
for?
perspective.
I think it's like bringing the importance of discipleship to children. It's like, a lot of times church ministries will have discipleship programs for adults, right? So, but I think what maybe Awana and the wider church culture is trying to do is remind us that it starts with kids, and that our kids' ministries are really important, and partnering with parents is so important that we need to call this discipleship. It's not just playtime at church, you know?
Right.
This is like we are teaching and training our children in the Lord.
It seems like it's going back to the basics too.
Yeah.
I mean, in over the years, I feel like I've seen big flashy stuff that we're supposed to entertain. Kids are supposed to think this is fun, which we do want them to enjoy church.
Right.
But I mean, we're called to go and make disciples.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah, just, a shout out to Matt Markins, who's now the president. He's had a talk that's probably free online actually, but his was called like a new map. We were using an old map. Now we need to use a new map. And he did talk about that, Lenore. Like it's no longer about entertainment. It can't be about that, because then what are we making? We're not making disciples.
Right.
Well, the question may have been, what should it have been about entertainment in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of this focus on practicality and what you think will work, but it does have downstream effects.
Yeah.
So, and in some ways, you say going back to the basics, it really is, I would argue, the biblical model. I mean, the very Hebraic model of the Old Testament was the parents raising up their kids, teaching them. This is the Deuteronomy 6. What has been called the Great Commission of the Old Testament. So I think a lot of people are catching that vision nowadays for a variety of other reasons, I think, but we don't have to get into that today. So,
but it's exciting for sure.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks for the book recommendation. Resilient.
Lenore has
you have one
as well?
too? All right.
I did. Yeah. I didn't realize we were going to do this, so I didn't have my prop
Shoot it in there.
like
Oh,
Rachel
yeah,
had.
sorry.
Now,
but
if Dave was here, he'd be objecting, but I will say, please, as many as you would like.
Well, actually, this book I think Dave might like. I'm not sure if he's read it yet.
Okay.
But it's called...
Are you listening, Dave?
Yeah,
Are you watching?
listen up, Dave.
Here it is.
It's called, I like the title, Doing Life with Your Adult Children, Keep Your Mouth Shut and the Welcome Mat Out.
Interesting.
So, yeah,
Okay. What is the thesis of the book?
Well, I mean, I read it a little while ago, so it's not totally fresh in my head. But
What do you remember from the book?
Yeah, there you go.
well, I feel like essentially we have different roles now. We're still their parents, but what does that look like? And how are we supposed to be relating to them? We still need to speak into their lives, but to recognize that our voices might, when we think we're giving them advice, they might hear it as we're insulting them, we're criticizing them, when really it's coming from the, a source of love, but it's not being received that way. So,
Mom, I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
And don't you know?
Yeah. I think to me, I felt like there was more self-awareness for what my role is. And it just really spoke to me because I do have kids that are getting older, as I had mentioned with Rachel, that, this is my season now. So I just found it encouraging because I love my kids so much. I want them to know that. But I don't want to get all walked all over either. But I also want them always to feel welcome and loved.
Well, maybe later on we can talk about some of the comments from last night about throwing a bunch of 18-year-olds together and whether that's the right way to do education.
He had opinions about that, didn't he?
So anyway, well, thanks. Okay, so what was it called again? Say it one more time.
Doing Life with Your Adult Children, Keep Your Mouth Shut and the Welcome Mat Out by Jim Burns.
That's Jim Burns. I know Jim Burns. All right.
Of course you do.
What a title.
Of course he does.
Someone's got to stand up for Dave when he's not here. Like, Dave's gone and you're asking what theses and books are.
Oh, God.
All right. Well, that'll be part of the episode next week. All right. Thanks you. And thus ends this edition of the Great Book War.
Before we move on to the next one, today's a very special day.
Oh,
yeah.
Where should we have inserted this, Tim?
Right now.
Right now.
Okay. All right.
Today is...
I mentioned it at the beginning. Let's come back to it. The special episode of Behind the Pulpit.
Today is Behind the Pulpit's first birthday. Behind the Pulpit turned 1 yesterday.
Happy birthday to... Is there going to be a graphic that you're going to insert right here?
I'll do my best. Happy birthday.
A bow wrapped up. By the way, the graphic for Behind the Pulpit that is out there everywhere is me and Rachel. So
that's right. I made it, guys.
Dave still hasn't made it on there.
Wow.
So to remind some of our viewers what Behind the Pulpit looked like at the beginning, this is a shot from the third ever episode.
Wow.
Serial.
Yeah.
See, he had it. There it was. Wow. Look at that. It was
called, and it's us.
And look, and Baby Groot is right there. He just grew up.
Baby Groot.
Unpacking the Humble Brag was the name of the
I'm going to turn it
episode.
over. I'm going to go up and get him, so I'll bring him back down here.
Great.
We should have looked at this picture. There it is.
I just love that it's the three of us, and like we're doing it today.
I like our
it.
expressions, though.
I know. We're like Rachel's...
Yeah, she said
What'd she
something
just
all
say?
right.
That's a good
I know. Too bad we don't have the audio
skeptical.
clip for that.
All right.
Oh, God.
100. Or 1 year old. How many episodes do we do in a year?
We did. I think we only missed like 2. I think I'll tell you right now. I think
every
50?
week. So
I'm gonna
was it
guess
52?
48. We only missed 4.
48. All
Okay,
right.
we missed it. Oh,
Not
because
bad.
for special occasions,
Different
and
things
all
like that.
Sure.
Yep.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks so much for sticking with us. I will say though that at that point, we probably had for subscribers on our YouTube channel like 60.
Oh yeah, we were.
I was like
around
60, and we are closing in on 2,000 right now. We
Wow.
just had like a big bump in the last couple
wow.
weeks.
That's true.
So
That's
it's
exciting.
growing. Thank you so much for watching us each and every week. We appreciate that. All right, so now it's time for the In the News segment. All right, so in the news. All right, so I have brought a plethora of news stories today that I think they might not seem like they all tie together, but I am going to attempt to bring them together. And Rachel and Lenore said they weren't aware of them. So what I'm going to do a couple times here is... Okay, you heard of the first one that we'll talk about, the foundational story that we'll talk about today. There's a few other ones that I'm just going to throw out there and ask for your reactions just as I summarize it. So we're going to see what happens.
All right.
All right. So the first one is this, and this is, I think, really interesting. This news story the headline is this from The Guardian. U.S. falls out of world's top 20 happiest country list for the first time ever.
Wow.
Last year, the U.S. was the 15th happiest country. Now we're the 23rd happiest country. Now, here's the thing I was going to share with Tim. All right. All right. The report created via Gallup, and the World Happiness Report's editorial board pointed to happiness decreasing in all age groups in the U.S., and it also found a significant decline among young people who are now the least happy age group.
Wow.
Tim,
That's sad.
you always seem like such a happy guy to me, and yet this is what's going on here. People under 30.
Well, Bob,
what happened?
As I often tell you, I do not identify as one of these Gen Z hooligans.
Oh, you don't. So you're making up your own identity.
All right.
Oh, no.
So here's another paragraph.
No.
In comparing generations, those born before 1965 are, on average, happier than those born since 1980. All right. So that includes me, 81 here. Among millennials, evaluation of one's own life drops with each year of age. Well, among boomers, life satisfaction increases with age.
There you go.
Very interesting.
Okay.
All right. So that's.
Like a fine wine.
Do you find older people to be happier than younger people? That's the question.
Tim didn't
right there.
hesitate.
All right.
Tim did not.
Well,
hesitate.
I will say, I don't know. I feel like people are looking for happiness in the wrong places now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, at least for me, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like happy all the time. I would consider myself joyful.
Good distinction.
Ooh,
There we go.
I like
So,
it.
All right.
yeah.
Okay, so that's the foundational problem. So our country is getting less happy, and younger people are getting less happy. Why is that? Let me just leave it there for a second and move on to the next news story. All right. Now, I want your reaction to this one.
Okay.
I'm going to read the headlines and the descriptions immediate. All right.
Okay.
So this one is called, here's the headline, Ghost Bots. Is resurrection of the dead through AI a healthy or haunting experience? Know what the research suggests. All right, so here's the definition of ghost bot. It says down here, resurrection of the dead is now this is good for Easter, right? Resurrection of the dead is now possible with the help of artificial intelligence. The AI or digital versions of deceased people are called ghost bots, death bots, grief bots, generative ghosts, AI ghosts, or AI afterlives. Tim, it sounds like my mic died. Can they still hear me? All right. Okay, I'll just keep going, or do you want me to stop? Can you still hear me?
No, you're still. I can still hear you.
Okay,
I can hear
good.
you too.
Well, my headphones are out. We'll see what happens. Hopefully you can hear me. People often leverage this technology to mourn their loss. All right, so when I was listening to a podcast about this, basically what they were saying is this a good thing? Is there a tool? Is it a good tool to use for mourning the loss of somebody? And later on in the article, it cites, like, did you guys see Avengers Endgame? Mm-hmm. Like, this is like the Tony Stark thing at the Avengers Endgame. He's died, and coming out of his helmet is a message that he recorded for his daughter. So, reactions.
It seems off, but I do have to say, like, in the Star Wars with Carrie Fisher, how they kind of worked her in. I mean, like, I thought that was acceptable.
It is the possibility of de-aging actors. That was what the whole actor strike was about last year, It's crazy what they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the manipulation. It's scary.
But this is saying, like, let's say you didn't record a message, but let's say this isn't going to happen. But let's say Rachel
Oh no, it's the hit by the bus thing again.
passed away suddenly.
I got hit by a bus. That's what
Didn't
they
record.
Hit by
Didn't
bus.
record a message for your kids, but they took AI and like created a video of you like you were talking to your kids. This is what mommy looked like, like that type of thing.
It's disturbing.
It's a little bit weird. Just show a past video of myself in real life. Like, show a home movie, okay? Like, can we just go back to what home movies used to be that are now on our phones? Like, if you're grieving the loss of someone, just go back and watch. Or
what if they
listen.
created like the essence of you and your personality, saying, "Lily,"
She'd probably have nightmares. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
Or be confused.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
for kids that would be confusing, right? Like, did mommy die or not?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just that's just me. And I think like it's almost like the way they're like promoting it, right? It's like, oh, resurrection. It's a ghost bot. That's a little bit much.
Yeah.
If you
Is it
ask
really
me.
a resurrection?
Like, like
Okay.
this is
All
not.
right.
This is a computer. Like, not anything close.
Especially
to
when
that.
it glitches. Glitch.
So the reason I thought this ties in with the first story is I'm asking the question, why are people unhappy? And is this something people are trying to put in there to help relieve
Right.
unhappiness or grief to some extent?
Well, I actually have heard about this in real life. So a friend.
Wait,
No.
What?
A friend of a friend. A friend of a friend. Their dog died, and she created.
And
a
they resurrected
video.
the dog?
Yes, she did this with her dog. So it was.
Wait, I'm sorry, did what?
Like made a video.
Like an AI video?
Yeah,
with
made the
dog?
AI video of the dog. No, I'm serious. So maybe for her, it was helpful in her grieving process. So is that what you're saying? Like.
Well, that's what they're saying.
That's what they're
I'm
saying.
not sure what I necessarily think about this. I do have a couple thoughts, but
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying that's a practical example that I've heard.
Practical.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think maybe to throw in some of the Christian worldview stuff here, God created us as embodied people, right? And birth, life, death are all part of the life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I think people are, and especially when you get to Easter and you talk about death and resurrection, I think people are scared of the unknown, scared of death, and they're trying to find ways to get around it and to live longer. For what reason? Ultimately, as we'll talk about on Easter, we are promised the hope of the resurrection if you know Christ and eternal life. And sometimes we're just holding on too much to material things when indeed we need to trust those with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Give those to the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it desensitizes you too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden you're not feeling your emotions because you're afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What's interesting about this is that we do have a generation that's growing up on screens, that's used to watching things and seeing videos. I asked your reaction. You're like, that's weird. Will younger people think it's weird down the road?
Yeah, it's a good
I hope
question.
so.
Yeah, and if not, maybe we need to teach them more about the ultimate embodied experience of the Christian life and why that's important to be present.
Yeah.
I mean, think about everything we went through with 3 years of COVID, of living on screens, and people were just dying to be back in the presence of other folks.
Fellowship. Yeah.
And all that brought with it.
We'll have to remind our kids of those times. At least
Yes.
for my kids, they won't remember. So
They might remember.
That's right.
the
My
mask.
kids were young enough to hopefully forget that.
Yeah.
So. All right, so that's the news. There was a couple other ones, but I'll move on after the ghost spot. We'll save the Kanye one for next week.
all right.
Yay! Honorary mention, though, I will give you this one.
He can't resist.
It ties in Neuralink. All right, Elon Musk and Neuralink.
Gosh.
Here's the headline: Neuralink posts video of first human patient using brain chip to play chess with his mind. And the subtitle was, he said, basically it was like using the force on the cursor, and I could get it to move wherever I wanted.
What?
So I mentioned this before, that they were working on this. It got FDA approval, but they actually put the chip in the guy's brain, and he was able to control the computer mouse with his mind.
Whoa. That's crazy.
So then if you break into that, you could claim somebody else was doing something wrong when they weren't.
Yeah, or somebody's going to hack your brain
Yeah,
at some point,
somebody's
right? Yeah, those are the dangers with it.
Yeah.
But, if you have somebody with the counterpoint is somebody with cerebral palsy that can't move, there is potential medical possibility breakthroughs there.
From that standpoint, that would be
if people can use it effectively. But
Yeah.
this is going to be a whole ethical thing that's going to come up down the road that people have to think about that they never have had to think about before.
Right.
And it goes into being made in the image of God and the embodied experience, and
And it's like, just because we can do it, should we do it?
It's called the technological imperative. So anyway, all right. So we'll stop there. We'll save Kanye for later on, and that's what's happening in the news. All right, Tim. Next segment. I heard we had some questions this week.
We do. We have a question.
We have a question.
This question came in on Spotify.
Spotify.
So for those of you listening on Spotify, you can
How many
ask
viewers
a
do we
question
have on
there.
Spotify?
I think we get a.
Two.
In terms of people who listen to the podcast and not consume
Is
it on
it
YouTube,
more than one?
it's more than Apple, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Wow.
But most people consume this on YouTube. But we would encourage you, if you can't watch it, listen to it.
All right.
Wherever you get
I'm
your
dying
podcast.
to know what this question is today.
Oh, the
that we can
question.
answer.
Here we
Yeah.
go. The question is, since it was decided in eternity past that Jesus would take the punishment for our sin, did God peer into the future and see that the Jewish people would kill Jesus, or did he harden their hearts?
Ooh. All right. Should we call Dave and ask him to answer the question?
Definitely.
So, I'm going to take a stab at it today. And then we also have Mitch Glazer coming for Good Friday, so maybe we can have him on the podcast in the next few weeks and just save this question for later on. Tim, can you put it back up there? Because I forgot that. What I want to mention with this one is there's a couple things that it's not just a Jewish question. So it's really asking about the scope of God's knowledge and God's providence and his plan. And for me, I mean, I think God knows all things past, present, and future. I think God is actively involved in that. So the question is whether God actively determines everything and how that works in with free will. Did God purposely cause the Jewish people to harden their hearts? And it's interesting because you read certain things in like the Exodus with Pharaoh, it tells us that God hardened his heart. What do you do with that? Some philosophers actually will use a term called middle knowledge to say that God knows all things, and he knows all possibilities in all worlds that could possibly happen.
Wow.
And so he doesn't actively determine certain things, but he can like almost redirect things. I may be butchering the whole middle knowledge stuff. I don't necessarily hold to that because I think that in my opinion, somehow limits his sovereignty. That's, of course, a debatable thing. But I do want to bring up one passage, and this is the key passage with this, and if you want to wrestle with the Jewish stuff, is Romans 9. So in Romans 9, it is starting to get into God's sovereign choice and how he works with Israel, and at the end of Romans 11, there is this kind of mass conversion of the Jewish race. But in Romans 9, which is a very debated passage, he does talk about how God created... this is Romans 9:22. So after having this whole conversation about the Jews and rejecting and Esau and Jacob and this and that, Romans 9:22 says this: "What if God, desiring to show his wrath and to make known his power, has endured with much patient vessels of wrath prepared for destruction, in order to make known the riches of his glory for vessels of mercy, which he's prepared beforehand for glory? Even us whom he has called, not only from the Jews but also from the Gentiles." So this passage seems to be saying that God created some for salvation and some not for salvation. And that's been the big debate. And it's not really a verse you can just skip over. You have to wrestle with exactly what he means here. So those are the issues that they're getting at in the passage. I do think there's a tension to hold that God is sovereign, that the idea of predestination is in the Bible. You have to parse that out, and things like other terms that are used here is God's divine foreknowledge versus foreordination. I think you have to hold in tension this idea of determination and free will, that they can both work together, I think, in a compatibilistic way. So did God see into the future and see what was going to happen? Absolutely. Did he actively force the Jews' hearts to be hardened? Well, that's debatable. So, yeah. So that's where I'll leave it for today. Maybe we'll come back with Mitch later on. But those are the issues that are at play in that debate and where you're getting at.
Yeah, that was good. I was just gonna say, like, I agree, Bob, that it's like one of those concepts in Scripture that you do have to like hold in tension. And I just like to think that like when we get to heaven, it'll be like those concepts kind of like. The tension gets released a little bit, and we get to like see a little more clearly like how God works. So it's that, and like the Trinity comes to mind too. Like our minds just can't quite comprehend exactly how that works, but I just feel like in heaven he might show us a little more.
All right, so coming out of that deep thought, that was so deep, we had to go do a little bit of a costume change. And Baby Groot decided he wanted to come down with me, so he's here. Rachel, could you make? Well, actually, we didn't get to your profound point when we were recording before, did we?
No, we did. Yeah,
we did.
I've already said my piece. It's your turn.
We were talking about the tension of free will and determinism, and we talked about God's perspective and our perspective, and it literally broke the internet. That just happened.
Right. Broke the audio.
The audio just went out, and we're back. So we got some new. We had to go take a nap and change our clothes, and Groot decided to come down because you know what he told me, Tim. He said we were celebrating the 1 year anniversary without him, and he goes, "I am Groot."
Oh, so maybe he messed up the audio on purpose.
Maybe he was the one that was hiding there. Bad Groot. I don't know. We're just going to put you over there. All right. Okay, so anyway, we're picking up. We had some technical difficulties. We're back. Let's just call this part 2. And we finished up. Let's just recap. We finished up with our intro. We did announcements. We updated about kids ministry. Rachel recommended a book. And Lenore recommended a book. I got a book here I had to go get.
No.
We talked about in the news. And we answered
cheating.
your question.
That's cheating.
Now it's time to talk about the sermon and the underground from yesterday. So that's what we didn't cover in our last time together. All right. So yesterday we had, 2 days ago now, I guess, we had Christopher Yuan here with his mom giving their testimony on Sunday morning. Powerful, powerful testimony. If you didn't get to hear that, you can go back and watch the live stream. We'll have the video, just the sermon portion video up pretty soon. And then we had an underground sessions last night where we dove into some kind of meaty topics. So let's just talk a little bit about big takeaways from Sunday. What were some of your big takeaways from Christopher Yuan and his mom and maybe the evening?
Mm-hmm.
I think you were all at both.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go first.
I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe Tim should go first.
Well, really the power of prayer. You know, Angela did not give up on her son, and she, just was seeking the Lord, and even just the story was so redemptive. It could have been an absolutely fractured family. When you hear about that, their marriage was broken. And, it was bringing Christ into it, going to BSF, learning about the Bible, and they just united. And then when this happened with their son, they came together and came around him and did not give up on him.
Yeah.
The story ended up being very different than what it could have been. It could have been.
It was.
Everybody was divided and, they could have not been a family.
Yeah, so I might say it was a fractured family, and it was God through his Holy Spirit that came in and saved them and knit them back together in a really powerful way. Yeah.
But in the end, it was not.
That's right. So it could have continued to go, and it didn't, but for the Lord. Yeah, really, really powerful story. If you read their book, The Out of a Far Country, which is a reference to Luke 15, which we're going to come to here pretty soon, they go into much greater detail, and they just kind of gave you a nugget in what they were talking about. There's a lot more to the story, but they hit the highlights. The one thing they didn't mention that I loved at the end was after he was in prison, after God did all that work, he came home, and there's this scene at the end of the book, sorry to spoil this, where he walks in to the home, and there's all these yellow ribbons representing all the people that had been praying for him over the years. And he said, I was just moved with tears to think all these people over these however many years it was, were praying for me. And the book concludes with basically, welcome home. Welcome home to the foot of the cross and to your new family. So they're really powerful. Yeah. I know, Rachel, what did you think? We had dinner with him on Sunday night, and Rachel had him in class back in Moody, she was concerned that he wouldn't remember her, and yet he did.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. He says he remembered me, and so I had him for Bible intro, so kind of like talking about, how the Bible's made up and how it came to be and stuff like that. So yeah, still remember. So yeah, it was really cool getting to see him and meeting his mom. I'd never met his mom before. So yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think tying maybe like the morning to the evening together was just like this almost like subtle concept that he brought at the end about like the gospel changed him through like seeing his parents live out their faith. Nothing they would have said or could have said or that they tried to say, would have changed his heart in that moment. But it's because they were showing him Christ, that's why he picked up the Bible in prison, and like, so that stood out to me that like sometimes it truly, we can say as many words as we want, but we have to wait for the Holy Spirit to work, but our actions say a lot. So I think that was really powerful. And, just the fact that he got saved in prison, like, because he had time. He's like, oh, I got nothing else to do. Might as well read the book of Mark and start there. So just really cool how God changed his heart. Like, and he said it was like a slow, gradual process, but that's real life. It's not always like this like moment, that people have. It's like a gradual process. So just that story, and kind of him bringing it back in the evening sessions to like talk about his concept of holy sexuality. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. And one of the things that stuck out to me in the testimony story was all these people he thought were his friends, all these things he had invested his life in, his time, his talent, his treasure. I mean, he talks a little bit about when he was in kind of the club scene and shows that he put on in the book, and all the money that had to be invested in that. At the end of the day, that was just all gone, nothing, worthless, apart from knowing the eternity of Christ. And you know, I think it's just really cool to see a family at the beginning that wanted nothing to do with Christ, and at the end were, what he say, his dad was in his 80s, just 60, 70 times a year going out on the road preaching the gospel, and seeing people come to know the Lord. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, for the evening session, so we covered topics of same-sex attraction, and there was some gender identity stuff, and then he talked a little bit about, the general concept of holy sexuality. He tied in singleness and how we should minister to singles, and you know, a lot of other things there. He talked about having a theological anthropology, a proper view of humanity. That's kind of a long word meaning that. The thing maybe we could talk about is, did you find that there was anything he said that was helpful in talking with kids about the topic? Now, he's put together this whole resource, the Holy Sexuality Project. The first one is geared towards, he says, middle and high school, but he's trying to make ones for younger kids too, because the reality is these conversations are coming up sooner and sooner. Did you have any takeaways of helpful things for equipping parents to engage in these conversations? Since earlier in the podcast, way earlier, we were talking about child discipleship. Anything that stuck out to you from that angle?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think he did a great job of just encouraging parents and grandparents to be the ones who are talking to their kids.
The grandparents were getting fired up on Sunday. I saw, yes, that's right, I'm a grandparent.
Yeah.
I saw that happening.
Yeah. So I think that's really good. I think, you know, just like any of these hard topics, like you need to know your own kids. So you need to know like when they are ready. And what I've heard is like when they start even like asking a question, that means they're ready. So like if they're the ones initiating it, like just don't shy away. Just, all right, now's the time. And it doesn't have to be all at once. You can gradually, you know, you just share a little bit at a time until, you know, just over time. And as they get older, you can share more. As far as specifics, I mean, again, that's hard because I think every parent needs to decide like how much their kid can handle at a time. I guess I would say one very practical thing that I wrote down was just having a zero tolerance on bullying and using the word gay in that type of context. You know, you can encourage your kids and teens to like not use that word. Even Dr. Young was like, be a little more creative. You can think of a different word to use to talk about someone's clothing or whatever. So I don't know. That's just one practical example. How about you, Lenore?
I don't know, when he was mentioning just about 3-year-olds, that you need to start at potentially that age because what they're seeing on TV, you know, back in the day when I was a little kid, we could trust the censors, you know, or just on TV.
You could trust the TV, producers,
You just can't. You really have to be in tune to what your children are viewing on television, if they're exposed to phone, whatever. You need to be having the dialogue with the kids and know what they're getting in, what they're receiving.
Yeah, I think one of the things that he said that I've given some thought to is just how this, and this is part of his first talk, how the identity piece, not just in the sexuality stuff, but in so many areas, has embedded itself within the cultural conversation. So what he was getting at as it related to sexual identity is that if you say, I disagree with your lifestyle, you're basically saying you're rejecting the entirety of who the person is. That's how it's received. Now, it shouldn't be. He's just giving you the lay of the land of how it is. So there was a lot of questions that came in that we didn't get to parse out every single one, but essentially, how do I bring up these conversations? How do I talk with somebody who has declared themselves somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum? How do I start conversations? There was a lot of questions about that. So,
With that, I feel like in a way he answered the question maybe differently than we would have expected, where I heard him say, like, talk about, ask them if they believe in God? Like, ask them, like, what is their view on God, and start there, because like he was saying in his own personal journey, like, you couldn't have convinced him otherwise that what he was doing was actually wrong. So, like, why try to convince someone that what they're doing is wrong when they don't even believe in God or whatever? So I really liked that he had a focus on the gospel, like, not just, he wasn't just talking about it. He was like, no, actually live this out and actually talk about the gospel more than you talk about their actions. Because they're not ready to hear.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you're only focusing on actions, you're just focusing on behavior modification and not heart change. So that's at least, I think, one of the themes that he drew out. Before I came to Millington years ago, I had a stint where I worked for Starbucks in San Jose, California. My friend was a church planner out there, and after that I came here. But I learned that San Jose, California was essentially has the highest population of people in the LGBT population, I think, of any city in the U.S. At least at the time. A lot of people identify that as San Francisco. Now San Jose is south of there, but anyway, I had a lot of folks that I work with that were, somewhere in that group. I had, transgender folks that were walking in. I still remember the one guy that walked in women's clothes. This was back in 2010, so this was not, the dialogue was not as in the popular culture as it is now, and that was wow. I was like, okay, but one of the conversations I had with somebody that I worked with was essentially asking that question: Do you think that I'm going to hell because I'm gay? And I think he addressed that question in his talk. At the end of the day, what I said to this guy was, people don't go to hell because you're of this identity. You go to hell because you don't know Jesus. And so I'm bringing that up because that's what he was getting at, is that you need to focus on your relationship with Christ first. And the other stuff is sort of, not that it's not important, but it's a bit superfluous. Like, life change will occur if the Holy Spirit is coming in and transforming and pointing you to the Scripture and changing your heart. And that's where the conversation should begin, not on the outward stuff so much.
Yeah, and I like that he really kind of made it like a level playing field in a lot of ways, just like reminding the audience that, like, we all sin. I think one moment stood out to me. He was like, I think even in this room tonight, there could be 2 or 3 people struggling with sin. We all thought he was going to say sexual sin, but no, he just said sin. Like, it's just like, yes, it's like we all struggle with sin. So just making it, like that, like homosexual sin maybe is like more obvious, right? It's more obvious. It's more out there. Whereas you can hide jealousy, you can hide gossip, you can hide pride, those type of sins.
I don't know if I could say it as eloquently as he did, but his point about, the homosexuality and heterosexuality, that heterosexuality is not the perfect way. It's not enough. Like that we need to be living. Why are you laughing?
Well, he was giving the illustration about the porn addict stuff. Like, I should be a porn addict, so I should reach other porn. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Right. There's so many sins within.
So he was like, we focus on this one thing, but really there's so many other things that should be. It's just sin, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's trying to get out.
Yeah. You can sin in a lot of ways being a heterosexual.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. You were finishing your thought. Okay.
Thank you.
He was laughing at something in his head, Lenore. Don't worry about it.
I was. Well, you made me think about something else he said that was in relation to your point. So yeah. So it was good. He had a lot of good things to say. One of the things I did mention, it's the questions at the end are always hard to get to everything. So there was a lot of other really good questions that were asked, and we did email him, and I'm trying to get him on an underground podcast to kind of get to more of these questions. So be on the lookout for that. We will post that when we hopefully are able to record that. So yeah, lots of other really good questions here. I tried to pick out because there's just a theme of what people are asking. But there are some more specific questions here that I'd like to get to. So anyway, other closing thoughts on the Christopher Yuan, the Underground Evening?
No, definitely just read their book, and if you missed it, watch the Sunday morning. Yeah, it was really good.
Very powerful.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, thanks so much if you came out, and we'll send out some follow-up notes. All right, Tim, I think we're at the end now. We've reached there. Baby Groot is happy.
All right.
He will show up again this time next year, back on the podcast for the 2-year anniversary.
Yes.
2-year birthday. So today's Theology Sprint, we're going to dive a little deeper into child discipleship.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
Given the nature of our guest today, is it appropriate to teach children about difficult or controversial theological topics such as hell, sin, and judgment from a young age, or should these topics be approached with caution to avoid instilling fear or confusion?
I know Rachel loves a good conversation about hell, so
it's important to talk about. But yeah, I do think it needs to be approached with caution. You don't want kids to just want to go to heaven because they're scared of hell. I've heard that that's in other generations that's happened before. So no, you want to tell them about the joy that we have in Christ, and that's what we're looking forward to in heaven. So yeah, I think definitely caution, but I think it is important. I think it's wrong to shy away from that like throughout their whole childhood. You really can't avoid that their whole childhood. You need to get there eventually. So
Yeah, you don't want to shut down conversations that children are asking about.
yes.
But you also don't need to reveal 100%. You just give it in the pieces that they can carry at the time.
Right.
I know there's an analogy about, can the father, the child asking about sex to the dad, and he's like, well, do you see that big piece of luggage over there? Can you pick that up right now? No, I can't. Okay, well, it's a little heavier than you can fully handle right now, so I think then they put a little bit
that's good.
story. So give them a little something that they can handle.
Yeah.
But maybe not all of it.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said earlier, like don't feel you have to like throw it all at them at once. It's like you're saying, Lenore, you just do it age appropriately and throughout their lives, teach them on those hard topics.
And that's a good thing for parents to hear, because sometimes they don't bring certain things up because it feels intimidating, but sometimes you're thinking about how would I answer it if it was an adult. And you have to remember that, the kid you only need to tell them what they need to know. You don't need to tell them everything. You just need to tell them what they need to know at that time.
At that time. Yep.
So, good.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Tim?
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we've come to the end.
All right.
Rachel, Lenore,
we
so glad you're
sprinted.
here.
It was a marathon and we sprinted. Thanks for Thanks for having
we
us.
did. We stayed overnight somewhere before we reached our destination.
I know. We even had to go take an 8-hour nap to finish this.
There you go. So intense. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on here. We'll have you on again soon. And thank you for watching this episode of Behind the Pulpit. Hopefully, Pastor Dave will be back next week post Easter. Join us for Resurrection Sunday this coming Sunday.